We use a lot of these kind of like human level health analogies where you as a person would never expect to be healthy if you ate the same processed food for 15 years straight.
You're listening to Customer Growth Sessions, presented by Intergrowth, where we talk through strategies to help up-and-coming e-commerce businesses bring in more customers. I'm your host, Pat Ahern. Let's jump in.
All right, listeners, welcome back to the latest episode of Customer Growth Sessions. Today, I'm thrilled to have on Tom DeMartino, the head of growth over at JustFoodforDogs. Tom, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Pat. Excited to be here.
Excited to have you on today. Can you start out by giving us an overview of JustFoodforDogs? What is it that you guys do over there?
Yeah, I would love to. So JustFoodforDogs is the first human-grade pet food company. And basically, the origin of the company started when our founder adopted his first dog. And he kind of learned what was allowed in dog food after that, because before then, he had no reason to really think about it or wonder what was in dog food. And the more he kind of like dug into it and the more he learned, the more he was horrified by the way that the pet food industry works and what's legally allowed in dog food. And so from there, he started cooking for his dog, and he noticed all these health benefits right away, where the dog had more energy, they were acting younger, they had a shinier coat. And from there, his neighbors started noticing. And so he started cooking for their dogs. And one thing kind of led to another, and he started the first pet food kitchen where you could actually go in and watch a real chef like preparing all the food, cutting up all the vegetables, sauteing it, and making it available for sale. And that was really like the genesis of the company, where from day one, it was really all about transparency and quality, where when you think about traditional dog food, you really have no clue where it's coming from, what's in it, how it's made. And so he wanted to really turn that upside down on its head, and did that by creating that pet food kitchen, where we kind of explain it to people like a Chipotle for dogs almost, where you know exactly what's going in it and what they're eating. And that was in the early 2010s. And at that point, it was really kind of a crazy idea to really put that much care and effort into dog food. But there's really been a shift in dog ownership and what it means to own a dog. And it's really like a big cultural shift happening, especially in the United States, where owning a dog used to be this thing. It used to be this creature that you'd kind of like tie up outside and leave them outside all day, and you'd feed them what you'd feed them. And that's how a lot of people thought about dogs. But now people more and more are thinking them as part of the family. They buy them clothes, they buy them nice food. And so there's been this big shift in what it really means to own a dog and how people are kind of thinking about them. And because of that, since then, we've grown into like a pretty big corporation where we still have our retail stores, but we also have a large digital presence and a pretty large wholesale component to our business as well. So that's kind of how we started and where we're at now.
Tom, going into today's recording, one of the things I've been so excited to talk to you about is, I guess, what I would broadly describe as informing someone of a problem that they don't know what they have. And here's what I mean. You guys have grown to this 9-figure brand. You're doing phenomenal as a business. As you said, like early days of the company, dogs were like this creature that you would tie up outside your house. That was way early days, early 2000s and well beyond that time. But dogs nowadays are exactly as you said. They're members of the family. Like a lot of, I would say, dog owners look at their dogs as like their children. So how is it that you went about convincing like those early customers to go from feeding their dogs like, call it kibble grade food, to like spending a pretty good investment, a pretty good amount of money on like really high-end dog food?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's been like one of the bigger marketing challenges I've faced in my career, because it is like a tricky thing where we have one kind of cohort of customers that we call people with a need state dog. And that's a dog that has like some sort of medical need for the food. So they need to lose weight, they have an allergy problem, they have a gastrointestinal or like GI issue. Those ones, it's pretty easy because it's a very direct problem solution aspect, where it's like they see their dog having a problem, they want to fix it. It's much easier to kind of bring those people into our orbit and like down the funnel. But we really want like all of the dogs to eat our food, because we know long term it'll be healthier and better for them. And it really is a tricky challenge where it's like you have a dog, you're feeding them kibble, they seem healthy, they seem fine. And so what we've had to really do is kind of like start at step one and help them understand what's wrong with what they're doing now. And we do that by kind of invalidating kibble, or like really shining a light on what it is and what's in it and why it might not be the most ideal option for your dog. And some of the really big components of that are one, the ingredient quality. So kibble legally only needs to meet a definition of feed grade, which is the same kind of food that we feed livestock. And livestock only lives for a few years. It's basically like the food for our food. And so a lot of people don't know or understand that most of the dog food you get at the grocery store or really by anywhere only meets that standard. And it's really horrifying once you start learning what's allowed in a feed grade food. So things like diseased animals or fruits and vegetables that aren't fit for human consumption because they were processed in a facility that's not clean enough, or the leftover parts and pieces of different kinds of animals, like things like bones and feathers and beaks, like all of that can be ground up and then turned into a kibble because it only needs to meet that feed grade standard. And so helping people really understand that is kind of like one of the first steps in helping them see why, even though your dog might be totally okay and healthy right now, it's kind of easier to understand, like, of course, feeding them that over something that's made of like human grade, fresh ingredients that you can see and things that you know are good for you, that's going to help your dog live a healthier, more vibrant life. So the feed grade standard is the first really big component. And then the other one is the ultra processed nature of kibble, where when you think about kibble, it comes in this kind of like brown rock format. And until someone really like poses the question, most people don't think about how it gets like that. So on the bag, they'll show like peas and carrots and chicken breast, but then you're getting this like brown rock. And when you really start breaking down how it gets from one to the other, it's really kind of crazy because they basically have to turn all of those ingredients into a dust and then process them, heat them to a high temperature, and then put them through an extruder. And we use a lot of these kind of like human level health analogies where you as a person would never expect to be healthy if you ate the same processed food for 15 years straight. And so the feed grade standard and then like the ultra processed nature of kibble are like two of the ways that we really help the true like top of funnel people kind of start thinking twice about what they're feeding their dog.
Amazon is the ultimate double-edged sword when it comes to generating sales. It's an incredible source of revenue for e-com brands, but become too successful and you risk Amazon creating the Amazon Basics version of your product and taking away all your sales. We see it happen all the time, and that's why we help businesses to build a second customer acquisition machine before they lose their Amazon sales. Interested in hearing more? Reach out to us at intergrowth.com/CGS to book a complimentary strategy session with our team. Once again, that's intergrowth.com/CGS. All right, back to the show.
I love the analogy of this brown rock because I think of the dog that I grew up with, and same thing, like early days of his life, he had these brown rocks that he was eating, but on the label, it showed chicken, it showed peas, it showed carrots, it showed peanut butter, and you think, oh, okay, well, somehow, I guess you don't think about it, like, oh, how is it that you go from peanut butter, carrots, chicken to this like brown rock formation within that? So, you've identified these two really big educational opportunities. What channels have you found most effective for relaying this message to those like top of the funnel customers, showing them that this is really an issue that they need to be thinking about?
Yeah, so we found paid social to be probably the most effective. We're always testing and trying new things, but paid social is a great format for video, which really lends itself well to breaking down these concepts in kind of bite-sized ways that'll help people understand our perspective in the way that we're trying to shift like the way people think about feeding their dog. And so what we found to be kind of our secret sauce right now is getting some of that information into a UGC style format where it's somebody talking about how they either, like our founder wrote a book called Big Kibble, and it kind of like breaks down all these things that I'm talking about. And so it would be like somebody that read the book and they're like, wow, it made my jaw drop when I learned that these things were allowed to be in my dog's food, or that they went to the vet and the vet recommended something that wasn't ultra processed because my dog was getting stomach aches or had like inconsistent poops. And so like finding different ways to hook those concepts into like a UGC format on paid social has been definitely the most effective for us because people are on those formats to consume content. But what we found is if it's too branded or brand heavy, like you have that guard that goes up against advertising. And so doing it through the lens of a customer or a real person has been the most effective way we found to deliver those messages.
That's amazing. And listeners, just for, I guess, definitions purposes, UGC, user generated content. But Tom, to your point, I mean, finding customers, how often would you say you're finding like, or maybe early days of the company in particular, how often are you finding like paid actors that can be behind that UGC content, and any platforms that you recommend in particular to find people that can create this user generated content for, let's say, Meta ads or another ad platform?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a couple different ways that we do it. We have a team of people at JFFD that manage our more organic customer style of influencers, where we were using a service called Village for a long time. And they're basically like an agency that helps you find people. You give them like your demographics and you say, we like our customer is like a health conscious woman that's like 35 to 55 and has a dog, obviously. And so then they'll try to find people that kind of meet that profile and can do a good job on camera. So that's one way that we do it. But we also work with a performance UGC agency where we basically give them like 4 scripts at a time. And we're like, hey, these are the 4 new ways that we kind of want to hit some of these points. And then they'll go out and they'll find like the actor, they'll find a dog, they'll shoot it all in their studio. And then they'll do kind of all that work for us. Because where it can get kind of tricky is there's a lot of people that do UGC that they're not, even if they're good on video, they don't know how to format it. So there's like an engaging hook in the beginning and it's the right length and they hit all the points without it being too scripted. And so we found using an agency that specializes in UGC performance style creative, like that's been the best way for us to really like scale into that.
And I'm curious, with those videos, I've seen personally, like, if you're doing user generated content or even like founder generated content, I think one of the fun little like misnomers, I don't actually think that you need to do like extremely high end video. Even if you're a bit more established as a brand, I've personally found like picking up my iPhone, like holding it out right here and recording quick little videos talking to customers. Those are the best ads that we've run for our own brand for clients. But I'm curious, have you found the same? Do you find there's a certain like video standard almost that is most effective for you?
Yeah, no, I have the exact same experience where, like I was saying before, if it's too branded or brand heavy, that people just have this kind of defense that goes up because everybody loves buying things, but nobody likes being sold to. And so the minute somebody knows that they are, like their mind goes to a different place. And so we found like the more authentic and natural it is, like the more disarming and engaging it is for people. And really, like, there's always these debates on what type of content works best for different channels and platforms. But what I've kind of found over and over is that what works best is always what people go to that place to consume. And so on paid social, people are on there to watch influencers and people that they follow, like share content about their life. And so, of course, like that format, but to talking about the things that are relevant to your brand is always going to work the best over something that's very heavy, like motion style ad that has like your logo and music and all of that kind of stuff. It's the talking head, camera to the face style video always works the best for paid social. And the same for TV. I think that's why the more like branded and polished stuff works better in a TV format because that's what people are expecting. That's what they're going there to watch, like that style of content. And so that's how I always kind of think about it and approach it is like, when people are on these platforms, what are they expecting the content to be like? And how can we kind of model it with the message that we want to bring to it?
Oh, that's so brilliant. I love that theory. I mean, again, my experience has been the exact same, that the best content that you can put out is the content that almost looks like you did this in like one take and has very minor edits. That's what we're seeing performs the best. And every time I'm equally shocked by that realization, but it holds true pretty consistently. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Exactly to your point. Someone goes on Instagram, they go on Facebook, any of these other channels, that's the exact same type of content that they're seeing their friends put out, that other influencers put out. So seeing that exact same experience in there, it falls right in line with everything else. As you said, your guard's likely not going up as much because you don't see it as being sold to nearly as much.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And what we found to be really effective is we try to test as many hooks and angles and ways of approaching all these topics as we can. Because what's amazing about paid social and specifically Meta is once somebody has like engaged with your ad, they click through, they're on the website. Now they're going to be eligible to see all the other videos. And so they might need like 2 or 3 or 5 different touch points or exposures. where one is about feed grade, one is about ultra processing, one is about like a testimonial of a dog that lived to be 20 years old. And it's like collectively giving them the conviction to actually want to try it and to spend more on their dog's food and to care about it in the same way that we do. That's why I think paid social has worked so well. It's almost impossible, especially with this complicated of a product, to get someone from A to Z in one 30-second ad. And so the way that paid social is set up and oriented, it works really well if you have like a longer consideration cycle product.
And I'm curious within that, how do you tend to chunk those different, I guess I would say like those different funnel breakdowns for ads? You had mentioned top of the funnel. It sounds like is a really big focal point for a lot of these meta ads or a lot of these other paid social ads that you've been running. Let's say outside of like broad top of the funnel, I define that as telling someone that there's an issue, maybe that they have no concept even exists in their world, but hey, this is something you should probably educate yourself on. What are some of the other big groupings I should be thinking about if I want to roll out a similar paid social campaign for my brand?
Yeah. So what I like to do whenever, especially before I worked at JFFD, I ran an ad agency for a long time. And this would always be like one of the big questions of like, what should the messaging be? What should we be saying? And people that work in the company, they'll always have a POV or like ideas about what that should look like. But what I like to do is I always find it fascinating. In almost every business I've ever worked in, there's a really crazy like 80-20 disposition of the amount of money that's being generated by like how many customers. So 80% of the revenue is typically generated by like 20% or less of your customer base. And in a lot of cases, it'll be even more extreme than that, where it's like 90% will be generated by like 5% of your customers. And so whenever I'm working on a new brand, where I always like to start is by creating a segment of those customers and like surveying them and really like asking them, like, why is this important to you? What do you like about the product? What do you not like about the other products? And really understanding like from their perspective, like how they talk about it and how they think about it. That's where I always like to start with messaging pillars, because everybody always has ideas about what that should look like. But sometimes you'll be really shocked by the difference in like how you think about your product or talk about it and what your customers actually care about and are saying. And like one example that we found at JFFD is we're also the number one vet recommended fresh dog food. And it's a claim that we're really proud of, that we want everybody to know. But what a lot of our customers found equally important is like the kitchen and transparency aspect. So they'll talk just as much about being able to go to the kitchen, watch them prepare the food, and like really knowing what's in it, just as much as the vet recommended aspect. And had we not done that work and understood that, that may not have been like as big of a part of our messaging mix.
Tom, hearing this, I'm curious how you go about finding your top 20% of customers. Is it as straightforward as, looking into your CRM and seeing which customers have bought from us 2+ times, 3+ times, whatever number it might be? Walk me through that process.
Yeah, definitely. So it kind of depends on what kind of technology you have or what tools you have to look at your customer base. And so what I would do at JFFD is in Klaviyo, that's like the easiest place to really understand our customers and the spend levels. And we have a couple of different reports. Like we use Power BI for a lot of our like business intelligence. And so like within there, we have a report that shows we call it like a decile report, where it breaks out all of our customers into groups of 10%. And then we can see like how many people are in that cohort, how much they've spent and how much they're worth. And so what really got me more interested in this is seeing in that top 10%, like that generates more than half of the revenue for the entire business. And then as you keep drilling in, it's even less people that contribute more of the value. And so if you have a CRM like Klaviyo, what you can do is figure out, like, let's say you have 1,000 customers, you can just keep making segments and drilling down and seeing like, how do you get it down to like 10% of the people or less, and finding that balance of, okay, these people are creating most of the value in the company. That's how I would kind of approach it, because then you can use that segment to like send them the survey and like start getting some of those insights.
Struggling to get new customers? We're here to help. Hey, this is Pat, the host of Customer Growth Sessions. Our agency, Intergrowth, has been helping e-commerce brands like Bella Bridesmaids, Brevity, and JS Dental to get more customers online since 2016. Interested in seeing how we'd help you? Head over to intergrowth.com/CGS to book a complimentary consultation with me. That's intergrowth.com/CGS. All right, back to the show.
I'm curious, do you find with that segment of like your most valuable customers that there's any sort of incentive that you should be providing in there, a 10% off coupon, whatever it may be? Or do you find it's way more effective to approach it from the angle of, hey, we genuinely just want your feedback so we can make a better product for you? Can you answer these 5 questions for us?
Yeah, I think it is important to give them some kind of really good incentive because what I'll typically do is either give them like $100 gift card or like give them like free treats or give them something like straight up, not even like a discount because these people have already contributed so much value and have like generated so much revenue for the company. If you give them something that costs 50, 100, $200, like that's really like a drop in the bucket and it'll just make them that much better of a customer where they'll really appreciate that. And then the way that you can kind of message the survey is helping them understand like how valuable they are and their feedback is and that you want to make the product even better for them. And so that's how I try to like position the survey of, hey, you've been like such a valuable and amazing customer. We really want to know what you think so that we can continue to do better, release products that you like, make any improvements where you think that we're missing, and just give you an overall better experience.
I love that. Tom, I think the last big thing I want to pick your brain on today is we were talking at the beginning about how early days of the company, a lot of people were giving their dogs fairly low quality food, let's say. Nowadays, there's so much more like love and affection and attention that people are giving to like everything related to their dog's life. As you said, like people are dressing their dogs, people are taking incredible photos, setting up Instagram accounts for their dogs. People are giving their dogs really high-end food. So for acquiring new customers today, how do you go about earning the trust of someone who like loves their dog more than anything in the world? They're content maybe with the dog food that they have, but in reality, they'd be way more better off if they ended up going to you guys for their dog food instead. How do you think about that side of the equation?
Yeah, that's a great question too. And that's one of the reasons why I was saying like paid social is so powerful in a category where you really do have to do a lot of education to get somebody into orbit and to really be like an advocate for what you're doing. And so that's why we always try to start with what they're doing, where they're at, which a lot of times is like feeding kibble and just explaining. We try to never like shame or make people feel bad, but more as like an advisor and like a trusted friend. Like, hey, did you know that this is allowed in most dog food? And like get them to like think about the ultra processed nature. Then once they've done that and they've shown interest, they've watched a video, they've been on the website, then they'll start getting more of like the middle of funnel content of like, we're also the number one vet recommended brand. So like vet recommendations carry a lot of trust with people. We show them like some content or footage from like our kitchen and our process of sourcing ingredients and just like help them understand like the difference in quality. We've also found doing like us versus them style static ads and things like that help a lot too, where we're showing like fresh food on one side and then kibble on another. Or even like there's a lot of brands that we call like fresh frauds in our category where they call themselves fresh food, but we have to like help people understand like actually, you know, like Fresh Pet is a big one, but they actually create feed grade food in most of their products. And so like helping people understand those things, I think is the best way we found to really build trust, because once you raise up the problem and like help them understand the issues with their current food, they're way more primed and open to something new.
Well, Tom, this has been amazing today. So, couple follow-ups in terms of next steps for listeners that want to start implementing this, want to learn more about you guys. First, where can people go to like learn more of your insights that you have to share online?
Yeah, that's a great question. Right now, I don't have like any kind of website or podcast set up, but honestly, if you want to just add me on LinkedIn, I think that's a good starting point for now. But if people are interested in this stuff, I would love talking about it more.
Brilliant. I was going to say, we'll add your LinkedIn profile to the show notes in here. What about Just Food for Dogs? Where can listeners go to follow you guys? Well, first of all, what is your website? Let's start out there for any dog lovers that want to start buying your products.
Yeah, definitely. So JustFoodforDogs.com is the website, and we are available. We're an omni-channel business, so you can get us on our website, on Amazon, on Chewy.com. We're in Petco, PetSmart, a bunch of grocery stores. So we're pretty available if you are interested in trying it. But if you want to kind of see and understand how we do the marketing, going to the website is a good first step. Opting in on the pop-up, you'll start seeing some of our CRM and how we do email, and then even interacting with us on paid social. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And once you do that, you'll start seeing like more and more content and getting like a real world idea of how we actually do all of this.
Absolutely. And one other gold nugget I'll share in there too. Listeners, if you want just inspiration for how Just Food for Dogs has set up, let's say like their meta ads campaigns, Facebook has this Facebook ads library that you can go to and you can see more or less all their active ads. They cut out any sort of like really similar variants, but for simplicity, we'll say you can see all the ads that they're running at any given time. I mean, you can see some of their legacy ads too. So definitely recommend checking that out. You can get like a tangible picture of some of those top of the funnel, middle of the funnel type ads and really use that for inspiration for your own campaigns.
Yeah, that's a great call. I love the Facebook ad library. So yeah, checking us out there and kind of getting an idea of what the UGC looks like and how we incorporate all of those messaging insights. That's definitely like a good place to check it out if you're interested in trying some of this stuff.
Well, once again, listeners, Tom DeMartino, the head of growth over at Just Food for Dogs. Tom, thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Thanks for tuning in to Customer Growth Sessions. If you found it helpful, subscribe and give us a review. It helps us to grow the show. Looking for more SEO guidance on how to grow your business? Contact us at intergrowth.com/estimator or email me directly. You can reach me at pat@intergrowth.com. That's all for today. We'll see you again soon.